The rain pounded against my skin as I ran, each droplet feeling like tiny needles piercing through my thin coat. My breath came in short, painful bursts, creating small clouds in the frigid night air. I could still hear Ryan's voice behind me, that familiar slur in his words that always preceded the worst nights. "Olivia, don't you dare walk away from me." My heart hammered against my ribs as I ducked into an alley, the smell of garbage and wet asphalt filling my nostrils. 3 years of this cycle, his drinking, his rage, his morning apologies, and tonight, I'd finally found the courage to leave. But I hadn't anticipated the storm, or that my getaway car would fail to start, or that Ryan would arrive home early. I pressed my back against the cold brick wall, my fingers clutching the small duffel bag containing everything I could grab in the 5 minutes I had before he returned. My phone was dead. The nearest bus station was 15 blocks away, and the rain showed no signs of letting up. When I peered around the corner, I could see Ryan's silhouette moving beneath the dim streetlight, his head turning in every direction. Even from this distance, I recognized the dangerous set of his shoulders. The last time he'd looked like that, I'd ended up with 3 broken ribs and a story about falling downstairs that no one questioned. "I know you're out here somewhere," his voice carried on the wind, making me flinch. I needed to move, to get as far away as possible before he tracked me down. Wiping the rain from my eyes, I spotted it across the street. A sleek black car, engine running, no driver in sight. Someone making a quick stop at a late-night pharmacy, perhaps. The windows were tinted so dark they reflected the streetlights like obsidian mirrors. It was wrong. I knew it was wrong. But as Ryan's voice grew louder, desperation overcame my better judgment. I darted across the street, my worn sneakers splashing through puddles, and tested the passenger door. Unlocked. Without allowing myself another thought, I slipped inside and ducked below the window line, my soaked clothes immediately dampening the immaculate leather seat. The interior smelled of expensive cologne, and something subtle I couldn't place. Sandalwood, perhaps. The dashboard glowed with more buttons and screens than I'd ever seen in a car. This wasn't just any vehicle, this was wealth on wheels. A momentary pang of guilt twisted my stomach, but the sight of Ryan appearing at the mouth of the alley I'd just left solidified my decision. I'd leave a note, an apology, money to pay for the ride, anything. Once I was safe, I counted my racing heartbeats in the darkness, praying that whoever owned this car would take their time. 1 minute passed. Then 2. Ryan was moving methodically down the street now, checking doorways and alleys. I pressed myself lower into the footwell. The driver's door opened suddenly, letting in the sound of rain before closing with a soft, expensive-sounding thud. I froze, not even daring to breathe. A moment of silence followed. Had they noticed the wet marks on their seat? Could they see me? Then a voice spoke, low and controlled, with the kind of quietness that was more terrifying than any shout. "You have exactly 5 seconds to explain why you're in my car before I have Vince here remove you permanently." I slowly raised my head above the dashboard. The driver wasn't alone. A mountain of a man stood outside the driver's window, his broad shoulders blocking the streetlight, creating a halo effect around his silhouette. But it was the driver who held my attention. A man in his late 30s, perhaps, with features that seemed carved from stone. His suit was impeccably tailored, no wrinkles despite the rain. His hands rested on the steering wheel, steady, adorned with a single platinum ring on his right index finger. When our eyes met in the rearview mirror, something cold slithered down my spine. They were dark, almost black in this light, assessing me with the detached interest of someone studying an insect before deciding whether to crush it. "I'm sorry," I stammered, my voice barely audible. "I needed to hide. My ex. He's out there looking for me and I—" The man raised one hand slightly, and I fell silent immediately, my words dying in my throat. "Vince," he said, his eyes never leaving mine in the mirror. "Check the street. Tell me what you see." The hulking figure disappeared from the window. I sat up straighter, clutching my bag to my chest like a shield. Rain continued to drum on the roof, creating a deceptively soothing rhythm that contrasted with the thunder of my pulse. "I can get out now," I offered, reaching for the door handle. "I'm so sorry for the intrusion." I can pay you. Stop. The word wasn't loud, but it froze me instantly. Don't touch the door. His eyes finally broke away from mine as he glanced out the windshield. In profile, his features were sharp. A strong jaw, straight nose, dark hair trimmed perfectly. He couldn't have been much older than 40, but power radiated from him in waves, aging him in a way that had nothing to do with years. Vince returned, leaning down to the driver's window. Man about half a block down, looking into cars, checking alleys, seems agitated. The driver nodded once. Description? White male, early 30s, brown hair, medium build, leather jacket, looks drunk. Ryan. The description matched perfectly. My body tensed involuntarily. That's him, I whispered, hating how my voice trembled. That's my ex. The driver's eyes found mine in the mirror again, and this time they narrowed slightly, studying me with new interest. I became acutely aware of my appearance. Soaked hair plastered to my face, mascara probably streaked down my cheeks, the collar of my coat torn where Ryan had grabbed me earlier. Vince, the driver said after a moment, get in the back. We're leaving. My eyes widened. I should go. No. Again, that quiet command that brooked no argument. You're staying right where you are. Vince opened the rear door and slid in beside me, his massive frame making me shrink against the opposite door. The leather creaked beneath his weight. I could feel the heat radiating from his body, smell the rain on his coat. He didn't look at me. His eyes focused straight ahead. The car pulled away from the curb smoothly, the powerful engine barely audible. As we passed Ryan on the street, I ducked my head instinctively, but the tinted windows would have hidden me anyway. I watched through the glass as my ex-boyfriend's figure grew smaller in the distance, until we turned a corner and he disappeared from view. Relief flooded through me, followed immediately by a new kind of fear. I had escaped one dangerous situation only to put myself directly into another. I didn't know these men, had no idea where they were taking me, and the quiet luxury of the car suddenly felt less like sanctuary and more like a trap. Thank you for helping me get away, I ventured carefully, but you can drop me at the next corner. I don't want to trouble you further. The driver's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror again. What's your name? I hesitated, wondering if I should lie. Something told me he would know. Olivia. Olivia Reese. He nodded slightly, as if confirming something to himself. Well, Olivia Reese, you made a significant error in judgment tonight. My car is not a public taxi service. I know, and I'm truly sorry. It was a desperate decision. Desperate decisions often have unintended consequences. His voice remained even, almost conversational, which somehow made his words more menacing. Do you know who I am? I shook my head, a knot forming in my stomach. Good, he replied, turning the car onto a wide boulevard I didn't recognize. That's for the best. You can call me Mr. Castellano. The name meant nothing to me, but the way he said it, as if I should recognize it, sent another chill through me. Where are we going, Mr. Castellano? I asked, trying to keep the tremor from my voice. Somewhere safe, he answered vaguely. Somewhere your ex won't find you. The car slowed as we approached a security gate fronting what appeared to be a luxury apartment complex. Mr. Castellano lowered his window just enough to press his thumb against a scanner. The gate slid open silently. I appreciate your concern, I said, sitting up straighter, trying to project a confidence I didn't feel, but I have plans. A friend expecting me. No, you don't. His certainty was unsettling. If you had somewhere to go, you wouldn't have been hiding in a stranger's car. I had no response to that. He was right. As the car pulled into an underground garage, the reality of my situation began to sink in. I was alone with two strange men, one of whom clearly wielded considerable power and wealth. No one knew where I was. My phone was dead. I had just traded one potentially dangerous situation for another that might be infinitely worse. The car stopped in a reserved space marked with a simple C. Mr. Castellano turned off the engine and finally turned to look at me directly. Up close, his eyes weren't black after all, but a deep, dark brown. Something in them reminded me of still water over unfathomable depths. Olivia, he said, my name sounding different in his mouth. You entered my car without permission. By most standards, that would qualify as a serious transgression. I swallowed hard. I know, sorry. Sorry doesn't erase actions, he replied, his gaze unwavering. Actions have consequences. Vince shifted beside me, a subtle reminder of his presence. What do you want from me? I asked, surprising myself with the directness of the question. The corner of Mr. Castellano's mouth curved slightly, not quite a smile, but something that hinted at amusement. For now, I want you to come upstairs. Get dry. Have something warm to drink. Then we'll discuss your situation. It wasn't a request. As if to emphasize this point, Vince opened his door and stepped out, then opened mine, standing aside expectantly. The garage was silent except for the occasional drip of water from the car's exterior. I had a choice to make, though it hardly felt like one. Step out into the unknown with these strangers, or what? Make a scene in an empty garage? Try to run with nowhere to go and a dead phone? I clutched my duffel bag tighter and stepped out of the car, the click of the door closing behind me echoing with an awful finality. The elevator was another world of luxury. Mirrored walls, polished brass fixtures, and that new car smell that spoke of regular cleaning. Mr. Castellano stood beside me, his presence filling the small space despite his perfect stillness. Vince positioned himself just behind us, silent as a shadow, but impossible to forget. I caught glimpses of myself in the mirrored walls, bedraggled, small, and obviously out of place between these two immaculate men. My soaked clothes clung uncomfortably to my skin, and I couldn't stop a slight shiver. In the harsh elevator lighting, I noticed a bruise forming on my wrist where Ryan had grabbed me earlier. I tugged my sleeve down quickly, but not before catching Mr. Castellano's gaze flickering to the discoloration, and then away, his expression unchanged. The elevator didn't stop until we reached the penthouse level. Of course it would be the penthouse. The doors slid open to reveal a private foyer, with gleaming marble floors and art that looked expensive enough to fund my entire existence. This way, Mr. Castellano said, stepping out first. I hesitated, suddenly overwhelmed by the reality of what I was doing. Following a stranger, clearly a powerful, dangerous stranger, into his private domain. Every warning I'd ever heard screamed through my mind. Second thoughts, Ms. Reese? He asked without turning around, somehow sensing my hesitation. I don't think I should be here, I managed to say, my voice smaller than I intended. He turned then, studying me with those dark, unfathomable eyes. You made that decision when you chose my car as your hiding place. Now we deal with the consequences. He gestured forward. After you. Vince's solid presence behind me made it clear this wasn't a negotiation. I stepped into the foyer, my wet sneakers squeaking embarrassingly against the pristine floor. The apartment beyond was exactly what you'd expect from someone like Mr. Castellano, spacious, minimalist, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the city lights glittering through the rain. Everything was in shades of black, white, and gray, with occasional touches of deep blue. It wasn't just decorated, it was curated. Nothing out of place, nothing personal or revealing. Vince, wait outside, Mr. Castellano said, and the mountain of a man nodded once before retreating to the foyer, closing the heavy doors behind him. Alone with Mr. Castellano, my anxiety spiked. I stood dripping on his immaculate floor, clutching my pathetic duffel bag, feeling like a stray animal that had somehow wandered into a palace. You're soaking wet, he observed, his tone matter-of-fact. The bathroom is through there. You'll find towels, a robe. Leave your clothes outside the door. They'll be taken care of. I blinked at him. Taken care of? Dried, cleaned. His eyes narrowed slightly. Is that a problem? No, I just what? Didn't want to be naked in a stranger's home. Didn't trust whatever taken care of might actually mean. I have some clothes in my bag. He nodded once. Fine. Go change. It wasn't kindness in his voice, more like impatience, or perhaps just practicality. I headed in the direction he'd indicated, passing through a spacious bedroom that, like the rest of the place, revealed nothing personal about its occupant. The attached bathroom was larger than my entire studio apartment, all marble and glass, with a shower that had more jets and controls than I knew what to do with. I locked the door behind me, leaning against it for a moment as I tried to gather my thoughts. The woman in the mirror looked like a stranger, pale, with dark circles under her eyes, wet hair plastered to her skull. A A small cut on my cheekbone was beginning to swell where Ryan had struck me when I'd told him I was leaving. I touched it gingerly, wincing. The warm shower was a temptation I couldn't resist, though I rushed through it, afraid to keep Mr. Castellano waiting. I pulled clean clothes from my bag, just jeans and a simple sweater, nothing that matched the elegance of this place. After combing through my wet hair with my fingers, I reluctantly unlocked the door and stepped back into the bedroom. Mr. Castellano wasn't there, thankfully. I found him in the main living area, standing by the windows, looking out at the city. He'd removed his suit jacket and rolled up the sleeves of his crisp white shirt, revealing strong forearms dusted with dark hair. A glass of amber liquid rested in his hand. "Better?" he asked without turning. "Yes, thank you." I hovered awkwardly at the edge of the room, unsure of my place in this strange scenario. He turned then, his eyes taking me in with a quick, assessing glance. "Sit," he said, gesturing to one of the sleek sofas. "Would you like a drink?" I shook my head as I perched on the edge of the sofa. "No, thank you." He raised an eyebrow. "Are you sure? You seem like you could use one." "I'm sure," I said firmly. The last thing I needed was alcohol clouding my judgment. "Mr. Castellano, I appreciate the bathroom and everything, but I really should go." He took a seat in an armchair across from me, crossing one leg over the other with casual elegance. "Go where, exactly?" The question hung in the air between us, unanswerable. I had no place to go. That was the whole problem. "I'll figure something out," I said, lifting my chin slightly. "I always do." He took a sip of his drink, watching me over the rim of the glass. The bruises suggest otherwise. My hand instinctively went to my cheek. "That's not—" "Don't lie to me, Olivia." His voice remained calm, but there was steel beneath it. I despised dishonesty. I fell silent, unsure how to respond. "How long?" he asked after a moment. "How long what? How long has he been hitting you?" The directness of the question caught me off guard. No one had ever asked so bluntly before. 3 years, I answered before I could stop myself, but not at first. It wasn't always like that. Mr. Castellano's expression didn't change, but something darkened in his eyes. "It never is." He set his glass down. "Are you hungry?" The abrupt change of subject disoriented me. No, I'm fine." Another lie. He stood up in one fluid motion. "You're thin, too thin, and your hands haven't stopped shaking since you got in my car. Food first, then we talk." He moved toward what I assumed was the kitchen, clearly expecting me to follow. After a moment's hesitation, I did, trailing behind him like a lost puppy. The kitchen was a chef's dream, all stainless steel and marble, with professional-grade appliances. Mr. Castellano moved through it with surprising familiarity, opening the massive refrigerator and examining its contents. "You cook?" I asked, unable to hide my surprise. The ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Occasionally, when the mood strikes." He pulled out ingredients with efficient movements. "Sit." I slid onto one of the high stools at the counter, watching as he began preparing something simple. An omelet, I realized, with what looked like prosciutto and some kind of expensive cheese. "I take it Ryan is the ex you were running from," he said as he worked, not looking at me. I stiffened at the sound of Ryan's name from his lips. "How did you—" "You said his name in the car." He cracked eggs into a bowl with one-handed precision. "Tell me about him." It wasn't a request. I found myself speaking almost against my will. "We met 3 years ago. I was waitressing at a restaurant he frequented. He was charming, attentive, said all the right things. The familiar story sounded pathetic to my own ears. 6 months in, he lost his temper for the first time, threw a glass against the wall, apologized profusely afterward, blamed work stress, promised it would never happen again." "But it did," Mr. Castellano said, his back still to me. "Yes, and got worse. He controlled everything. Who I saw, where I worked, what I wore. I traced a pattern on the marble countertop with my finger. I tried to leave twice before. The first time he found me at my friend's place. The second time—" I swallowed hard. "The second time I ended up in the hospital with broken ribs. He convinced everyone I'd fallen downstairs." Mr. Castellano turned, sliding a plate in front of me. The omelet was perfect, golden brown and fluffy. "Eat," he commanded.